The internet's absolutely filled to the brim with people discussing obscure oddities from the past, old and often disturbing relics from a less connected time. An eerie missing persons broadcast of someone who may never have existed. An uncanny image of a sliced off head hidden inside a video game glitch that looks a little too real. The unknown identity of a celebrity on an old fabric print. Given their cryptic nature, many of these unexplained artifacts become the obsession of small online communities. Groups form. Theories and information get shared around. Some catch the attention of the wider internet, and before you know it, hundreds or even thousands of people have joined the hunt for the truth. Soon, it becomes difficult to separate fact from fiction. In this episode, we'll be exploring a handful of such digital urban legends. Starting with this. On the 3rd of June 2020, a post appeared on RBI, a subreddit dedicated to investigating and solving crimes and mysteries, both big and small. But something about this particular post, made by user It's Kmart, caught the RBI community's attention, and continues to be the subject of speculation to this very day. It was simply titled, "Any idea what's happening in this photo?" According to OP, someone in a true crime discussion group found an empty photo album at a Goodwill in Washington state. Only, when they flicked through the pages, they realized it wasn't actually empty at all. Inside was this one solitary photograph. The image, which looks to have been taken back in the 70s or 80s, shows two men in a shallow stream. When enhanced, the scene becomes a lot clearer. The figure on the left is laying on his stomach, with his head just above the water, and his hands and feet bound with duct tape and possibly a zip tie. The figure on the right, whose hands are also tied behind his back, and whose mouth may be taped over too, is sitting upright, and looks to have just had his head dunked under the water. His shirt appears to have been torn at the shoulder. The shadows of what appears to be a jeep door and a third man can be seen on the ground. Many believe the man's holding something, possibly a rifle. Others seem to think that he's dragging another person on the ground. The final thing of note is that the picture appears to have been taken from within a car. The dark spots along the bottom may have been caused by the vehicle's interior, door lock, and wing mirror. Given the disturbing nature of the photo, the woman who found it claims to have given it to the police, though as it stands, the scene remains unexplained. When and where had this photo been taken? Who was the man behind the camera? And, most importantly, were the men in the water in peril or not? Since so little concrete information exists about the image's background, the good people over at RBI began throwing their own theories in the ring. The main one, of course, being that these two men were the victims of a serial killer, or, more likely given the camera setup, a duo of killers. The men had been tied up against their will, forced into the stream, and were then either tormented or slain. Those responsible photographed the entire incident as it unfolded for their own sick amusement, with there possibly being more photos like this one still out there somewhere in the world. Though how this particular one came to end up in a book in Goodwill remains unknown. Shortly after this photo was brought to Reddit's attention, user Groundbreaking Bad made a rather haunting discovery. In their words, "This missing person from Alabama looks a bit like the guy sitting up, Christopher Noel Lorette. He went missing in 1977 and worked for Otis Engineering, and could explain the work style uniform. His work truck was found wrecked in Texas with someone else inside. Of note, there's a long creek in the town where the guy disappeared from, Bruton. It's called Murder Creek, and if you Google image search it, you'll see it's pretty shallow in places. It also has some sandy, dry banks." Indeed, Christopher does seem to bear a strong resemblance to the man in the right of this image. The date he vanished also matches up with the age of the photo. However, there is still debate whether the right-hand figure is male. and without even being sure of that, it's hard to even speculate on their identity or link them to any missing person reports. This being a legitimate snuff photo is, of course, the darkest theory, but if true, it also raises a few other questions. The most interesting being, who developed the photo? Processing a reel of film with an image like this on is risky, and is almost certainly going to raise alarm bells. Just look at the case of Lam Kor Wan, aka the Hong Kong butcher, who photographed his dismembered victims and was caught out by the authorities after he tried to have the film processed at a lab. After the technician tipped off the cops, they waited for Lam to come and pick up his photos. Lam claimed to have been picking up the photos for a friend, only for one of the officers to coldly reply, "You don't have any friends." Detectives searched Lam's apartment and found other photos of women's body parts, along with Tupperware boxes containing female organs. That's a story for another day, but it does illustrate an important point. That if the cameraman behind this image really had taken the lives of these men, then he had almost certainly developed the picture himself. As mentioned, the woman who discovered the photo claims to have given it to the authorities. So, unless investigators ever release information to the public, there's no way for us to get a look at the back of the photo and see if there are any watermarks, roughly cut corners, or any other signs to indicate where and how the image was developed. Of course, the other theories surrounding the picture's origin are far more innocent. Some believe it was taken on the set of a low-budget horror movie, one with questionable safety measures. Others say that this was all part of a military training exercise, though the irregular outfits and haircuts may suggest otherwise. Perhaps then, this was a fraternity hazing. That would explain the matching red shirts, the frat house colours maybe. Though saying that, some even think that the photo is double exposed, and that the two figures in the water are actually the same person, hence their similar attire. The final theory to mention is the simplest, that the image was taken by a group of friends goofing around outside. Let's face it, that's the least exciting solution, and a small, morbid part of you doesn't want that to be the answer, but perhaps the truth really is that straightforward. Well, for the sake of these two men, I sincerely hope that is the reality behind this photo, because, if not, then it shows a scene of pure horror, and perhaps even the final moments of two unknown homicide victims. I spend a lot of time online searching for online mysteries like the ones I'm sharing with you today, and if there's one thing I've realised, it's that prying eyes are always trying to get a peep at that valuable information of yours. In order to keep our data safe, we need to make sure we're protected, and that's why I'm excited to be partnering with today's sponsor, Aura. Aura is an easy-to-use app that includes everything you need to stay safe online in one neat package. Their VPN allows you to stay internet anonymous by keeping your browsing history and personal info safe and encrypted. Their all-in-one service helps you fight back against websites that make your personal details public by automatically requesting that they remove your info. That means far less robocalls. Aura protects you from scammers and hackers by scanning the dark web and looking for your emails, passwords, and social security numbers that someone may be selling. If Aura finds anything, it'll alert you, fast. For added protection, they even give you near real-time alerts on suspicious credit inquiries, say if someone was trying to open up a credit card or a loan in your name. Aura's packed with loads of other essentials too, including antivirus protection, parental controls, and a password manager. You may already have an app that does one of those things, but with Aura, you won't have to download and pay for a bunch of separate apps. Right now, Aura are offering all of my viewers a 2-week free trial. Simply go to aura.com/lazy, or click the link in my description, or scan the QR code on screen, and let Aura do the hard work of keeping you safe online. On the evening of August 3rd, 2009, a tall and emaciated woman named Gabriela Rico Jimenez was caught on camera acting erratically outside the Fiesta Inn, a luxury hotel on Ocampo Street in Monterrey, Mexico, screaming at police officers and onlookers. Some of them recorded the woman as she angrily and earnestly made some very strong allegations against some very well-known individuals. Allegations of murder, secret societies, and cannibalism. After several minutes of ranting, Gabriela was forced into the back of a police vehicle and driven away from the scene. The following morning, local TV stations aired her entire diatribe. Here's an abridged version of what Gabriela said outside the hotel. "I want my freedom," she screamed. "I was in Mexico City for a year and 4 months. All this began back in mid-2001. They were young and powerful, and they killed them. What I wanted was my freedom. I want my freedom. Carlos Slim knew about this. I want my freedom. It hurts my soul that they took him away. Leave me alone. They've already taken me to the police station, and they told me they know nothing. They took me to the general hospital. You were there. You killed Mourinho. The police asked me, who did they kill? The Queen of England? The Queen of Germany? Did they kill Mickey Mouse? They were mocking me. They ate humans," she screamed. "Humans! I wasn't aware of anything. Of the murders, yes, but they ate humans. They smell like human flesh. You're not going to take me away until we clear this up. You are not taking me. You already took me there, so you could make a copy of me. Let me go." In summary, Gabriela was declaring to the world that she had been held captive by some sort of powerful underground group, one that partook in cannibalism, and that the authorities were helping to cover up their activities by eliminating whistleblowers. Now, in most cases, people who go on rants like this in public are typically having a mental health crisis, or under the influence of a substance. But this incident stood out to viewers and internet users for a couple of reasons. Firstly, because Gabriela's outburst followed a coherent and captivating narrative. And secondly, because Gabriela wasn't just anybody. She was a well-known supermodel, hence why she was so skinny, and why news stations aired her segment in the first place. Her career had apparently taken her to the runways of Mexico City, Paris, and New York, and she was even said to have appeared on TV shows and in magazines. She wasn't exactly Kate Moss levels of famous, but she was known. At least, that's what was originally reported by the media. Indeed, many social media users still claim to remember seeing Gabriela on television prior to her rant. As of right now, if you Google search the name Gabriela Rico Jimenez, you won't find any information about her modelling career. In fact, you won't find any official record of her existence at all, other than the video of her outburst. Of the few blogs and articles that do still mention her past career, their reference links all lead to sites that are either broken or have been taken down. Aside from her rant in Monterrey, almost nothing else about her exists online. This has led to many people speculating that Gabriela Rico Jimenez has been wiped from the internet entirely. But as well as her supposed modelling career, some believe that Gabriela herself has been erased. Since being taken away by the authorities that night in 2009, Gabriela supposedly went missing and hasn't been seen or heard from since. Her whereabouts and well-being remain a mystery. With all that in mind, it's easy to see why this video has since become a rumour magnet and something of an urban legend on internet forums. There are many who believe that Gabriela's outburst may have been more than just nonsense rambling. They say that although her claims do sound wild, there could be more truth behind them than people want to acknowledge. Namely, that she had just escaped from a human trafficking ring and was exposing the nefarious activities of Mexico's rich and powerful elite. Activities that involved eating human flesh. listening through her rant that night in Monterey, she name-dropped Carlos Slim. Carlos Slim was the richest man in the world at the time. Given her supermodel status, Gabriela would have brushed shoulders with Mexico's high rollers. It's not entirely out of the question that she would have met Carlos Slim too. In fact, some sources even reported that at one point, Gabriela was dating Carlos Slim's son. That is, before those sources mysteriously vanished from the web. Gabriela also mentioned a man named Mourinho, who she implied had been murdered by the authorities to help protect the sinister underground group of elites. In all likelihood, Gabriela was referring to Juan Camilo Mourinho Tarrazo, a high-ranking Mexican politician whose Learjet crashed into Mexico City during rush hour, shortly before Gabriela made her rant. 14 people are confirmed to have lost their lives in the crash, including Mourinho, all the other passengers on board the plane, and 6 people at Ground Zero. Netizens began speculating whether Carlos Slim was somehow affiliated with the shady, elite club of cannibals, whether Mourinho was going to expose them, whether the police had taken care of him at the request of Carlos Slim and his clubmates, and whether they made Gabriela disappear too. After all, if there ever was a person who could make someone disappear, it would surely be the richest man in the world. One of the most widely discussed twists in this case came a few weeks after the supermodel disappeared, when a law student visiting a police station claimed to have seen Gabriela. Keeping his identity secret to protect his family and reputation, he wrote on an online forum, quote, "At that time, I was in the same place where the girl was taken after being arrested. I still remember her face, so full of despair, fear and anguish. I approached her and asked her some questions, if she knew where she lived, etc. She told me that we were all already dead, and that we belonged to them, among some other very strange things. After 20 minutes of being with her, some tall, well-dressed men arrived. They practically forced me out of there. I asked why they were doing all of this, if this was just a girl with a mental disorder. I asked where they were taking her. They told me it was none of my business, and that it was for my own good that I leave. When I walked away, they stopped me and asked me what she had told me. I only replied, 'Crazy things.' The next day, I went to the high officials of the ministry and told them about what had happened. They just laughed and said, 'Really? She doesn't exist. She never existed. And you don't work here.' I think it's important to take this account with a grain of salt, seeing how the writer is just some anonymous person on the internet. In fairness, I think it's important we take this whole urban legend with several teaspoons of salt as well. The way I see it, there's a lot of big claims, and not a lot of evidence supporting them. If Gabriela was such a famous model prior to this clip, why hasn't anyone come forward with some physical media showing her as a model? An old magazine, or a recording of a fashion show? If you dig deep enough into the Gabriela Rico Jimenez mystery, you'll find people discussing other rumours too, from Gabriela being taken to some sort of MK Ultra facility, to her being buried at a cement factory owned by Carlos Slim, to there being other reports of a group of elites in Mexico that snatch up children from the streets and feast on them at lavish parties in underground complexes. I've even seen people discussing celebrity cloning. Apparently, a lot of people believe that elites clone celebrities for a number of purposes. Attractive companions, designer meat, that sort of thing. Ultimately, I can find very little evidence supporting any of these theories. But then again, seeing how Gabriela was said to have been scrubbed from the internet, I wouldn't be able to, would I? It is true that Gabriela's whereabouts and well-being remain a mystery, and that we don't know what happened to her after she was taken away. Given Monterrey's history, this wouldn't be the first time something sinister was uncovered there. The city seems to be a hotbed of violence, especially when it comes to the treatment of women. Just think back to my video on Debony Escobar. But that doesn't necessarily mean that Gabriela was silenced by some secret society. Maybe no other news stations followed up on her case after the rant, hence the lack of info. maybe the supposed reports of Gabriela being a supermodel were nothing more than stories, shared around so often that they've been accepted as truths. Or maybe, just maybe, the urban legends are true, and Gabriela was exposing Mexico's most rich and powerful. Whether the theories hold credence, or whether Gabriela was simply unwell, I hope for her sake she's okay now, and getting whatever help she needs, because the alternative is much too grisly to contemplate. On September 29, 2016, at approximately 8:45 AM, a New Jersey transit commuter train came hurtling into Hoboken Terminal, one of the busiest stations in the US. The train, which didn't attempt to brake as it entered the station, crashed into the terminal during the morning rush hour at high speed. 114 passengers on board were injured, including the driver, and one person standing on the platform was killed by falling debris as parts of the roof collapsed. She was Fabiola Bitter de Kroon, an attorney and mother of one who had just moved to Hoboken. After an official inquiry, it was determined that the train operator fell asleep at the controls due to undiagnosed sleep apnea. He awoke after the impact with no memory of how it had happened. So as it turned out, this was nothing more than an unfortunate accident, which sadly nobody could have predicted. Or could they? Here's where things get weird. The day before the incident, a nearby upstate New York TV station called WKTV was broadcasting their evening programs as normal, when suddenly, at 6:18 PM, an unexpected emergency alert appeared at the top of the screen. It read, "Civil authorities have issued a hazardous materials warning for the United States, effective until September 29th, 2:16 AM, EDT. Could you, on a train? Wait for further instructions." Okay, that's pretty wild. Remember, this alert appeared on screen one day before the train incident at Hoboken Station. Needless to say, this got a lot of people online theorizing about the Dr. Seuss Alert. Namely, that this was a go signal for whoever really caused the Hoboken train crash. After the alert appeared on screen, WKTV tweeted that the alert had been a technical error and that no such warning was meant to air. FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, had scheduled a nationwide alert test to take place on that day, though no alerts were actually meant to air on screen for viewers to see. Something had simply gone wrong in the process, and those tuned in got to see the test. The fact that the alert referenced a train, and that a real train incident occurred in New Jersey the following morning, was simply a chilling coincidence. However, later that evening, WKTV made another announcement. FEMA replied that they did not send this alert out. They'll launch an investigation into how their codes were hacked. WKTV seems to be the only target of this hack. For now, we've disabled the codes in our decoder that trigger this alert. As it would turn out, stations across the entire country did indeed air alerts at the same time as WKTV on September 28th, though not a single other one of them said, could you on a train, or referenced a train at all. FEMA later stated that the WKTV alert was written by a developer as part of their nationwide test event, and that there was no ill intent behind the message. It was just a gibberish sentence that he had made up, only meant to be seen by the network's operators, not by the public. Still, that explanation hasn't stopped people online discussing how odd the alert was, especially considering the events that quickly preceded it. Could you, on a train? The message and timing are just too suspicious to ignore. So what do you think? Was the emergency alert just an eerie coincidence, or was there something more sinister at play? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. A huge thank you to all of my supporters here on YouTube and over on Patreon, especially my biggest supporters. McKee, Alex Greensall, Anja-Yekaterina Faustov, Asiamina, Azrael Warakai, Brad Hammer 33, Cassidy Simpson, Chief Cochuaque, Clayton Thompson, Colin Monsma, Connor Louthan, Dustin and Tiffany Vanderpool, George Lopez, Gina Valera, Grace Archie, Ian Billick, Infamous-senpapi, Jessie Jug, Leonardo Martinez, Lyndon Witebski, Monica Mendoza, Mrs. Yvonne Rankin, Peter Aldridge, Philip Wester, Taylor&Monica Gruenk, The Only Dorita, TNS Mum, Zane, Peyton Trolling, Itai Alon, Nephus 1988, and Lydia Cumo. The best things happen. In the dark.